Tanse, welcome to APTN National News. I'm Creeson Agecoutay. Thank you for joining us. The Manitoba First Nations Police Service is warning the people of Sandy Bay First Nation and surrounding area that there is a dangerous supply of drugs circulating in the community. Police say earlier this week they responded to 3 separate incidents where individuals who consume drugs have lost consciousness, and in one case, Narcan had to be used to save the life of an individual. Authorities are cautioning anyone who has purchased or plans to consume illicit drugs in Sandy Bay that they could be risking their life. Police are encouraging anyone with information on the source of the dangerous drugs to come forward and report it to them. In a statement to its members on social media, Sandy Bay First Nation says there have been a few unintentional overdoses in the community over the past 24 hours. Luckily, these individuals were able to receive medical assistance in time to save their lives and avoid purple down. It is a highly dangerous drug. It is a mixture of fentanyl, carfentanil, and often heroin, and it can be cut with other drugs. 2 arrests have been made in connection to the homicide of a Nunavut man living in Winnipeg. The 46-year-old victim is Jacques Kablitok, originally from Rankin Inlet. On May 12th, Winnipeg police responded to a call about Kablitok, who was found severely injured on the ground in the city's west end. He was taken to hospital and later pronounced dead. On Tuesday, police arrested 32-year-old Derek James Gray, charged with manslaughter and robbery, and 21-year-old Roberta Sumner, charged with possession of property obtained by crime under $5,000. According to the police, Kablitok was confronted and robbed by the 2 suspects. Police allege the incident escalated and Kablitok was fatally stabbed. First Nations people's life expectancy in British Columbia has dropped significantly over a 4-year period, according to an interim report. The COVID-19 pandemic and the toxic drug crisis in BC are both being blamed for the drop from 73 years in 2017 to 67 years in 2021. There are also now more First Nation people dying earlier than expected, from 117 people to 156 per 10,000 people. Dr. Daniel Ben Smith, Indigenous Health Deputy Public Health Officer, calls the numbers gut-wrenching and says they show how settler colonial systems are not meeting the needs of First Nations people. First Nations people account for only about 4% of BC's population, but account for 14 to 19% of total deaths from toxic drugs. The report was released on Wednesday by BC's First Nations Health Authority. Manitobans will have access to free prescription birth control starting on October 1st, the Manitoba government announced earlier this week. The full cost of around 60 different birth control methods will be covered through the Manitoba Pharmacare program. IUDs, hormone injections, and the pill are some of the common types covered. A prescription will be necessary, and participants must not be covered under other federal or provincial programs to be eligible. The Manitoba government says full coverage of birth control could save someone up to $10,000 throughout their lifetime. The cost for the coverage is estimated at about $11 million per year.
Our government affirms women, girls, and gender diverse folks having control over their reproductive health, understanding that this is key to greater autonomy over their personal and professional lives. Free birth control reduces unintended pregnancies, lowering health risks associated with pregnancy and childbirth. Free birth control helps in managing and treating reproductive health conditions. Free birth control supports Manitobans' participation in the workforce by planning pregnancies around their schooling or training or careers, which ultimately contributes to Manitoba's economic growth.
A cap on the amount of funding available for searches of unmarked graves at former residential school sites was met with widespread condemnation, so much so that the federal government recently had to reverse the decision. Earlier this week, Dennis Ward spoke with Kimberly Murray, the independent special interlocutor for missing children and unmarked graves associated with Indian residential schools. Here's that interview.
Kim, thanks so much for being with us here today. The Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations acknowledged that the federal government made a mistake when it capped money towards searches for unmarked graves at former residential schools. What did it say to you that they did initially cap the funding with little to no consultation?
I mean, it was quite a shock to all the communities that are currently being funding or seeking funding. And to be clear, they didn't just cap it, they cut it, and they cut activities that communities were able to use the funds for. Specifically, they removed at the time the ability for communities to commemorate or memorialize the unmarked graves, meaning they wouldn't pay to put headstones or any kind of plaque on the grounds of the burials.
What does removing the cap mean for communities? Do we have a sense of how many are doing this, how much money might be needed to complete the work?
Yeah, well, I believe there's still a cap. It's just significantly higher. So I believe they've gone back to the $3 million cap per year per community that are doing searches. I have not received any correspondence from Canada explaining the new criteria and how they're going to assess applications. So we're going to have to see what they're doing when communities put in their funding proposals. But, I think what's really difficult with this whole process is that Canada is treating this like it's a program, that searching for the unmarked burials of children is a program, and it is not a program. These are disappeared children, and they were disappeared by the state, and the state, Canada, the federal government, has international legal obligations to support communities that are doing this work. It shouldn't matter how much it costs or how long it's going to take, because they have those international obligations to support this very sacred and important work.
You've been digging through documents for many years that are many years old and seeing how Canada has the role that they've played in all this. Is this kind of a continuation of this, making this so hard to get the funding, not knowing what the funding can be used for, just really making it difficult, I guess, for communities out there?
Absolutely. And when we talk about records, it's not just getting the records from Canada and the churches. There's many other archives that hold records. And so there should be no limit on how many archives you can go in to get the records to bring the data back to the community to help identify the children.
As we mentioned, we're approaching the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, and we mentioned you've been in the trenches with this for not just the last 2 years, but a pretty good chunk of your life. How will you be reflecting this September 30th?
Well, I'm going to be out in Alberta, going to a number of gatherings that are being hosted by organizations and survivor groups, and speaking at those. I think it's really important that everybody realize that, September 30th is not a day of celebration. It's a day of remembering. It's a day of memorializing. It's a day of mourning. And so, it's a solemn day, and that everyone should reflect on the history and on the truths that survivors have been sharing for decades. And I encourage all Canadians to, on that day, even pick up the report that I released in June called Sites of Truth, Sites of Conscience. Read the TRC report and reflect on their lives and their role and importance in contributing to reconciliation.
Yeah, you mentioned your other report there that just came out a couple months or so ago. Just really thorough and an important report. Your work is wrapping up soon with the final report coming, a final gathering coming. What do you think people should expect with that?
Well, yes, my report's going to be released on October 29th, where I'll be making, as my mandate calls me to do, make recommendations for a new legal framework to protect the burial grounds of the children. So I will release that on October 29th, and then after the gathering, spend some time meeting with government officials and Indigenous leadership and survivors to speak more about the findings and the recommendations that I'll be making.
Kimberly Murray, appreciate, as always, you taking some time for us here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. If you want to share your feedback on that interview or have a story idea for us, here's how you can reach us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to www.aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, LinkedIn, and X. And you can also watch this newscast anywhere, anytime on YouTube. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. We have another interview coming up with Dennis Ward as well. We'll be back in about a couple minutes. Welcome back. The recent appointment of longtime broadcaster Charles Adler to the Senate is being called grossly offensive by First Nations in the province he is meant to represent. Even one of Trudeau's cabinet ministers, Dan Vandel, criticized the selection of Adler. For more on this appointment and the fallout, Dennis Ward spoke with the Truth in Politics panel on Thursday. Jennifer Leywitz is a partner with Pasquale Harbour Strategies, and Negon Sinclair is a columnist with the Winnipeg Free Press. Here's that interview.
Jennifer, Negon, thanks for being with us this week as always. Jennifer, you were speaking out about the appointment of Charles Adler to the Senate even before the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs put out its statement. What don't you like about this appointment?
I think it was just shocking that he was one of the picks. We saw Tracy Mugley appointed in Saskatchewan, and, the Liberal government made a big promise in 2014 that they were going to come in and make the Senate nonpartisan, and obviously that has not happened from what we've seen from some of the senators that have been elected or appointed, that have a fairly rich political history with the Liberal Party. But with Charles Adler, I just think it's bananas. Like, it really is. It's highlighting so many various problems that we have with Senate appointments. We have seen Dan Vandel from Manitoba, the Liberals' only minister in that province, speaking out. So obviously he wasn't consulted. And then we saw the Assembly of First Nations in Manitoba also coming out and speaking out. So then that also highlights the issue of, were they not consulted, and did nobody pick up the phone and talk to them either?
Negon, did you see this as a surprise, this pick?
Not if you, I suppose, see and consider the context of the kind of desperate situation that Justin Trudeau is in politically. He needs a voice that will, at least for the short term, Adler will only be serving about a 5-year term before he's forcibly retired, according to the mandatory retirement age. He needs a force that will combat Pierre Poilievre, will be a self-declared conservative. Whether he is or not is debatable up to this point. My column that I point out is the man is certainly very frivolous with his political affiliations, kind of checkerboarding when conservatism works, when it doesn't. He's somewhat different, and particularly while he calls himself a small C conservative, he's certainly been more of a liberal over the past few years, particularly since he's left talk radio. But I would say that he has become a personal champion of Justin Trudeau and supporting the message of the federal Liberal government. And good, bad, or ugly, that is absolutely what's leading to this appointment.
Jennifer, we recently saw the feds backtrack on the funding cap for searching for unmarked graves. A bit of a surprise. Do you think there will be enough backlash here for this pick to be rescinded?
I honestly don't know. I've been trying to think about that over the last few days, but, like we've discussed previously about, Indigenous people being a political football, we see this all the time. We've seen Liberals come out heavily against Pierre Poilievre and his quotes that he made in 2008 regarding Indigenous people and settlements. But at the same time, this is an opportunity right in front of you where, Charles Adler is not an elected official. He was appointed. Canadians have a duty to elect good politicians, and when they have historical past that are hurtful to Indigenous people or any group of people, you're going to hear about it. But at the same time, we did not elect Charles Adler. The Prime Minister had an opportunity here to really showcase reconciliation, and instead appointed somebody that does have historically a bad relationship when it comes to talking about Indigenous people and our issues. I think in one of the articles I'd read, he referred to our people as boneheads or something like that. And that's a problem. And if the Prime Minister is committed to reconciliation and the fallout from the funding cap relating to gravesite searches, there's that looming cloud over him right now. If you are actually committed, then show it.
Niigaan, as you pointed out, it's kind of changed some positions. I can just remember during the election campaign here, Adler had an article criticizing the billboards about not searching the landfill, which I think pretty much everybody would have agreed with that anyways. But, people recently were criticizing one of your colleagues at the Free Press about their previous articles and views. Can people not change?
Oh, I would say the difference between who you're talking about is Tom Broadbeck there, who was well known for having very strong, incorrect, divisive views involving Indigenous peoples. Tom Broadbeck wrote a column taking responsibility for those incorrect, divisive views. Anyone, if they wish, can go and look at my column. I address the fact that Charles Adler, while may have changed his tune over the year, and I think anybody can change their opinion over a period of time, needs to take responsibility for some of those atrocious things, incorrect, factually incorrect, which led to stereotypes and damaging views by his followers about Indigenous peoples, and taking responsibility for that is just something that he's not willing to do. As I've shown in the interviews that he gave just after he was appointed to the Senate, he wants to double down from his time as being a right-wing talk radio host. He doesn't want to take responsibility, and what he says is I profited mightily for the radio stations that I worked for by reflecting the views of what he viewed as Canadian views, and he doesn't apologize for his success. I mean, you can read it right there in the black and white in the quotations on those things that he have come out since he's been appointed. The one thing that I would say is that he asked for a meeting with the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. I couldn't think of a more awkward meeting that maybe would take place if it will be accepted. I can't see the Assembly maybe accepting that, but it is a person that's going to be decision maker on things like funding for First Nations for the next 5 years. So it might be in the Assembly's best interest. But I hope that Adler certainly comes with much more than an apology, but takes responsibility for his past incorrect, divisive statements.
Reached out to AMC earlier today to find out if that meeting will be taking place. Yet to hear. So, Jennifer, Niigaan, thanks to you both for doing this.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dennis. When we come back, we'll take you to Santa Fe, New Mexico and Nova Scotia, where we're back in less than 3 minutes. Stay with us. St. John 17, Charlottetown 20. Cartwright 23, La Grande River 22. Gaspé 17, Val-d'Or 20. Toronto 23, Sault Ste. Marie 15. Sudbury 20, Sioux Lookout 22. 17 in Norway House, God's Lake 18. 19 in Winnipeg, Barons River 18. Swift Current 19, Regina 18. LaRange 13, Buffalo Narrows 15. Sunny in Fort McMurray at 26, Fort Chippewa 25. Medicine Hat 26, Red Deer 26 as well. Tofino 17, Bellacoola 22. Prince George 23, Dees Lake 15. Watson Lake 17, Dawson 15. 17 in Yellowknife, Wrigley 12. Fort McPherson 15, Inuvik 13. Chesterfield 15, Cambridge Bay 14. And Resolute 3, Arctic Bay 5. A group of 10 Indigenous artists in the Yukon and the Northwest Territories received accolades at a prestigious Indigenous market in New Mexico. The annual Santa Fe Indian Market draws an estimated 100,000 people each year. The market showcases North American Indigenous art, craftsmanship, jewelry, and fashion. The 10 artists received government funding to attend this year, as there's been minimal Northern participation in the past. 3 Northern artists won first place in their respective categories. 2 others secured second place finishes. Whitehorse-based artist Randy Nelson is one of them, winning first place in the diverse arts category for her piece, Floral Protection.
Really great. I felt really supported with the group that I went down with. So it was great to go down as a northern cohort. And we met people from all over the world, and our artwork was really valued, and people were really excited to see it.
At the Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Summer Games, athletes continue to compete on the field, but as Angel Moore found out, there's more to the games than just beating your opponent.
I'm here at the Mi'kmaq Summer Games and the Member 2 First Nation. This is the third time the community is hosting since the Games began again in 2010. For Chief Terry Paul, it was important the Games included Mi'kmaq culture.
A number of other cultural events like swimming and canoeing and Waltis, a very ancient game that we play here. And it's very lively action there, and a number of elders are involved in that. So that's one really good thing about our games, is that everybody can participate if they want to.
At track and field, youth competed at the 30, 60, and 100-meter races. Here are some of the youth sharing what games means to them.
Other competitors meet other people, and that's pretty much fun to other people.
I like being an athlete and playing for my team, and I like bringing support to my team, so yeah.
Like brings energy, and like it lets you go outside more and like learn about different provinces and make new friends.
Oh yeah, I think it's fun to be in the games because there's tons of different communities, and I can, like, if I have really cousins in like other communities, they can come down.
Drake Johnson is 11 years old on Team Savaganagati First Nation. He's won multiple medals, but just likes to run.
Oh, I like about running because I like racing people, and I like racing on like a track outside.
Over at men's basketball, Agecoutay and Member 2 drew a large crowd, with Agecoutay coming out on top. Agecoutay's First Nations, Megan Basque, came to support her team. She was recently crowned Miss Canada United World. Basque is a mentor and a judge for the Games Princess Pageant. She also competed in badminton.
It's nice. It's nice that I'm able to come out of my comfort zone. I've never competed before, so, you know, my son's watching as well, so it's nice for me to showcase that to him. But I'm having fun. I plan to come back every year to try new things.
So far, Agecoutay First Nation is leading with 102 medals, and Member 2 is the second with 67 medals. The Games continue on Friday. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Member 2 First Nation, Unamagi, Mi'kmaq for Cape Breton.
And that's your midday newscast for this Friday, August 23rd. Dennis Ward is back for your evening national newscast in a few hours. Make sure to join us then. From everyone at APTN National News, hi miigwech masicho. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again. Ekose.